Maria had been cleaning the Rothstein concert hall for 3 years now. Every night she arrived at midnight when the building was empty and quiet. The marble floors needed polishing, the velvet seats needed dusting, and the brass railings needed to shine. It was honest work, and Maria was grateful for it, even though her back ached by morning and her hands were rough from chemicals. Her daughter Elena was 12 years old. During the school year, Elena stayed home with her grandmother, but summer was different. Summer meant Elena came to work with her mother, sitting quietly in the back offices with her books and homework while Maria cleaned the grand halls. It wasn't an ideal situation, but Maria had no choice. Childcare cost money they didn't have, and her mother was too old to stay awake through the night watching a restless young girl. Elena never complained. She was a quiet child, always lost in her thoughts. She would bring her school books, a flashlight, and sometimes a sandwich wrapped in foil. While other kids her age were having sleepovers and watching late-night movies, Elena was learning to find peace and silence in empty hallways, in the strange magic of a building that came alive during the day but slept at night. This particular July night was especially hot. The air conditioning had been turned down to save money, and even though it was past midnight, the air inside the concert hall felt thick and heavy. Maria was on the 3rd floor, scrubbing the bathroom tiles, when she realized she hadn't heard from Elena in over an hour. Usually her daughter would come find her every 30 minutes or so just to check in, to break the loneliness of the night. Maria felt a small flutter of worry in her chest. She pulled off her rubber gloves and walked quickly through the corridors, calling Elena's name softly. The building was safe, she told herself. The doors were locked. The security guard was downstairs. But still, a mother's instinct is a powerful thing. She found Elena in the last place she expected. The main auditorium, the heart of the building. Maria pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. The space was enormous, with rows and rows of red velvet seats rising up into darkness. But there, in the center of the stage, under a single spotlight that had been left on, was her daughter. And next to her daughter was the piano, the magnificent Steinway grand piano that was worth more than Maria would earn in 10 years. The piano that famous musicians traveled across the world to play. Elena was sitting on the bench. Her small hands were resting on the keys. Maria's heart stopped. She wanted to shout, to tell Elena to get away from that piano immediately, but something made her freeze. Maybe it was the way her daughter sat there, so still, so focused. Or maybe it was the expression on Elena's face that she had never seen before, a look of complete wonder. Then Elena began to play. Maria stood at the back of the auditorium, her hand covering her mouth. The sound that came from that piano was nothing she had ever heard. It wasn't a song from the radio. It wasn't a melody she recognized. It was something else entirely, something that seemed to come from deep inside her daughter's soul. The notes were slow at first, hesitant, like someone learning to walk, but then they grew stronger, more confident. Elena's fingers moved across the keys with a strange knowing, as if they had always belonged there. The melody was sad and beautiful at the same time. It reminded Maria of her own mother's lullabies, of rain on tin roofs, of everything she had left behind when she came to this country looking for a better life. Tears started rolling down Maria's cheeks. She couldn't explain why. The music just pulled something out of her, some emotion she had been holding inside for years. The loneliness of working nights, the fear of not having enough money, the guilt of not being able to give her daughter the life she deserved. All of it came pouring out as Elena played. Elena had never touched a piano before. Maria was certain of that. They didn't have a piano at home. They barely had furniture. Elena had never taken music lessons. They couldn't afford that luxury. So where was this coming from? How was her daughter, her quiet, bookish daughter, creating something so beautiful? The song went on for what felt like forever, and no time at all. When Elena finally stopped, her hands resting gently on the keys, the silence in the auditorium felt alive. Maria wiped her face and started walking down the aisle toward the stage. Her footsteps echoed in the enormous space. Elena turned around, and for a moment she looked frightened. "Mama, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have touched it. I saw it sitting there and something inside me wanted to try. I couldn't help it." Maria climbed onto the stage and pulled her daughter into her arms. "Baby, don't apologize. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." "Where did you learn to play like that?" "I didn't learn," Elena whispered. "I just felt it. The music was inside my head and my fingers knew what to do. Is that strange? Maria held her daughter tighter. Strange didn't begin to cover it. But instead of fear, she felt something else. Pride. Pure, overwhelming pride. What Maria didn't know was that they weren't alone. In the security office downstairs, Roberto, the night guard, had been watching the cameras. He saw everything. Roberto had studied music in college before life got in the way, before bills and responsibilities made him take a job watching monitors instead of playing instruments. He knew talent when he saw it, and what he had just witnessed on that grainy security footage was something he had never seen in all his years around music. A child who had never played before, creating something that sounded like it came from a trained concert pianist. No better than that. It sounded like it came from somewhere deeper, somewhere pure. Roberto made a decision in that moment. He pulled out his phone and recorded the security footage playing on his screen. His hands shook slightly as he did it. He wasn't sure why he felt so compelled to capture this moment, to share it with the world. He just knew that what he had witnessed was special, maybe even miraculous. He watched as Maria and Elena left the auditorium, the mother's arm wrapped protectively around her daughter's shoulders. They had no idea that their lives were about to change forever, that by tomorrow morning the world would know Elena's name, that this one moment of a young girl following her heart would open doors neither of them could imagine. Roberto looked at the video on his phone one more time before uploading it. He typed a simple caption, "Mystery girl plays like an angel. Who is she?" Then he hit share and watched as the view count started climbing. 1 view, 10 views, 100 views. The magic had begun. Roberto couldn't sleep that morning. He kept checking his phone every few minutes, watching the numbers climb. What started as a handful of views had turned into something he couldn't quite believe. By the time the sun came up, the video had been watched 50,000 times. By noon, it was 500,000. By evening, it had crossed 2 million views and showed no signs of slowing down. The comment section exploded. People from every corner of the world were writing in different languages, but they were all saying the same thing. This girl was special. This music was different. This moment was real. I've been a piano teacher for 30 years and I've never heard anyone play with this kind of emotion. One comment read, "Who is she? Someone find her. The world needs to hear more," another person wrote. "I'm sitting in my car crying. I don't even know why. This music just touched something in my soul," said another. Music professors started analyzing the video frame by frame. They talked about her hand positioning, her natural sense of rhythm, the way she seemed to understand dynamics without any training. Composers listened to her melody over and over, trying to understand how a child with no musical education could create something so original and so moving. But it was the story behind the music that really captured people's hearts. Someone had recognized the concert hall in the video. Someone else noticed the cleaning cart visible in the corner of the security footage. Piece by piece, people put together the truth. This wasn't a privileged child practicing in a fancy music school. This was a cleaner's daughter, playing in the middle of the night in a building where she probably wasn't even supposed to be. The story went from a viral video to a cultural moment. News channels picked it up. Morning talk shows discussed it. Even celebrities started sharing it. A famous pop singer tweeted, "This is what pure talent looks like. No auto-tune, no production, just a girl and a piano, and something magical." But the biggest moment came when Maestro Viktor Petrov, the legendary conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic, posted about it. Petrov was known for being harsh and difficult to impress. He had made grown musicians cry with his criticism. He rarely used social media, but he wrote a simple message that got shared millions of times. "In 40 years of music, I have never heard such pure musicality. We must find this child." That's when things got crazy. Maria had no idea any of this was happening. She didn't have social media. She didn't watch the news. She went to work, came home, took care of her children, and tried to survive one day at a time. Her life didn't include checking phones for viral videos or reading comments from strangers across the world. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who told her. Mrs. Chen knocked on their apartment door 3 days after the video went viral, holding her phone with a shaking hand. "Maria, is this your Elena?" she asked, showing her the screen. Maria looked at the video. Her heart dropped into her stomach. There was her daughter sitting at that piano, playing that beautiful music, and below the video were numbers she couldn't comprehend. 8 million views. 15 million views. 20 million views. Where did this come from? Maria whispered. It's everywhere, Mrs. Chen said. Everyone is talking about your daughter. They're calling her a genius, a prodigy. Maria, do you understand what this means? Maria didn't understand. Not really. All she felt was fear. Deep, cold fear that wrapped around her chest and made it hard to breathe. She thought about her work visa that was always temporary, always uncertain. She thought about how she had brought Elena to the concert hall without permission. She thought about all the ways this attention could go wrong, could expose them, could ruin the small, stable life she had worked so hard to build. She grabbed her phone and called her supervisor at the concert hall. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Maria, I've been trying to reach you, her supervisor said. Have you seen the video? I just saw it. I'm so sorry. I didn't know Elena touched the piano. I'll pay for any damage. Please don't fire me. I need this job. There was a pause on the other end. Maria, nobody's firing you. Do you understand what's happening? Your daughter is famous. The phone here hasn't stopped ringing. We've had calls from reporters, from music schools, from people claiming to be talent agents. Everyone wants to find the girl from the video. Maria felt dizzy. She sat down on her worn couch, still holding the phone to her ear. I don't want this, she said quietly. I don't want attention. I just want to keep my family safe. I understand, her supervisor said, and her voice was kind. But Maria, this isn't going away. You need to think about Elena. This might be an opportunity for her. After hanging up, Maria went to Elena's room. Her daughter was reading a book, completely unaware that millions of people around the world knew her face, her music, her story. Baby, we need to talk, Maria said. She showed Elena the video. She watched her daughter's eyes grow wide as she saw herself on that screen, saw the millions of views, read the comments from people calling her a genius. Mama, I don't understand, Elena said. Why do so many people care? Because you're special, my love. What you did that night, what came out of you. Most people spend their whole lives trying to create something that beautiful, and you did it without even trying. Elena looked scared. Are we in trouble? Maria pulled her close. No, baby. We're not in trouble, but things are going to change. I don't know how yet, but they're going to change. Over the next few days, the attention got worse. Reporters showed up at their apartment building. Maria stopped going outside except for work. She kept Elena inside, away from the cameras, away from the questions. The phone calls to the concert hall continued. Music schools from around the world wanted to offer scholarships. Rich people wanted to become patrons. Television shows wanted interviews. Maria ignored all of it. She was a mother first, and her instinct was to protect, to keep her daughter away from a world that seemed too big, too hungry, too ready to consume a 12-year-old girl who just wanted to play piano. But then one evening, there was a knock on their door. Maria looked through the peephole and saw a man she didn't recognize. He was Asian, maybe in his 40s, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater. He didn't look like a reporter. She opened the door but kept the chain lock on. Mrs. Gonzalez? The man said. My name is James Chen. I'm a concert pianist. I saw the video of your daughter and I needed to meet her. Please, I'm not here to hurt you or take advantage. I just want to help. Maria stared at him through the crack in the door. She had learned to be suspicious of people offering help. Help usually came with strings attached. We don't need help, she said. I think you do, James said gently. And I think Elena needs it too. Your daughter has a gift that appears maybe once in a generation. I grew up poor in San Francisco. I know what it's like to have talent and no resources. I know what it's like to be scared of the world seeing you. But I also know what happens when that talent gets ignored. Please just give me 30 minutes to talk to you. That's all I ask. Maria looked at this stranger standing in her hallway. Every instinct told her to close the door, to keep her family hidden, to stay safe in their small, invisible life. But something in his eyes made her pause. Something honest, something that understood, against her better judgment. She unhooked the chain and opened the door. James Chen sat at Maria's small kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a cup of tea she had made for him. The apartment was tiny but clean, with religious pictures on the walls and the smell of rice cooking on the stove. Elena sat next to her mother, watching this stranger with curious eyes. I want to tell you my story first, James said, so you understand why I'm here. Maria nodded, still unsure. still ready to ask him to leave if he said anything that felt wrong. I grew up in San Francisco, in Chinatown, James began. My parents owned a small restaurant. They worked 18-hour days every single day. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment above the restaurant, and I could always smell grease and garlic even in my sleep. He took a sip of tea and continued. When I was 8 years old, there was a piano in the community center down the street. An old beat-up thing that was probably worth nothing. But I would sneak in there after school and teach myself to play. I didn't have lessons. I couldn't read music. I just played what I felt. Elena leaned forward, interested now. A teacher heard me one day, James said. She was visiting from the music conservatory and she told my parents I had talent. Real talent. But my parents didn't understand. They wanted me to be a doctor or an engineer. Music was a hobby, not a life. We fought about it for years. What happened? Elena asked quietly. I ran away when I was 16, James said, and his voice carried old pain. I lived on friends' couches. I worked night shifts at gas stations. I practiced piano whenever I could find one. It was the hardest time of my life, but I couldn't give up music. It was like breathing for me. I needed it to survive. Maria understood that feeling more than she wanted to admit. Eventually, I got into a music program on a full scholarship. I worked 3 jobs to support myself. It took me 10 years longer than everyone else, but I made it. Now I perform around the world. I've played in the greatest concert halls, but I never forgot where I came from. I never forgot how hard it was. He looked directly at Maria. When I saw Elena's video, I saw myself. I saw that same hunger, that same need to create music. But more than that, I saw something I never had. Something incredibly rare. What? Maria asked. Natural genius, James said simply. Mrs. Gonzalez, I've studied music my entire life. I've met child prodigies who started at age 3. I've worked with talented kids from the best music families in the world. But what your daughter did in that video, I've never seen anything like it. Maria felt her throat tighten. She only played once. Maybe it was just luck. James shook his head. It wasn't luck. The way she understood phrasing, dynamics, emotional expression, all without any training, that doesn't come from luck. That comes from somewhere deeper. Some people are born with perfect pitch. Some are born with photographic memory. Your daughter was born with something even more rare. She was born understanding music at a level most professional musicians never reach. Elena looked down at her hands. It just made sense to me. When I touched the piano, it was like the keys were telling me what they wanted to say. James smiled. That's exactly what I mean. Most people have to learn music like a language. You already speak it fluently. But we can't afford lessons, Maria said, and the words came out sharper than she intended. We can barely afford rent. So this talent, this genius, what does it matter if we can't do anything with it? That's why I'm here, James said. I want to help make this possible. Maria stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Everyone wants to help, but help comes with a price. What do you want from us? Money we don't have? A percentage of something? To manage her career and take control? I want nothing, James said calmly. I make enough money from my own career. I don't need anything from you. I just want to see Elena get the chance I almost didn't get, the chance to develop her gift. Maria paced the small kitchen. And how? How does a girl like Elena, from a family like ours, in a situation like ours, how does she get that chance? Do you know how complicated our life is? Do you understand that drawing attention to us could be dangerous? I do understand, James said. More than you think. That's why I spent the last week making calls, talking to people, working on a plan. I want to propose something to you. But I need you to hear me out completely before you say no. Maria crossed her arms but nodded. There's a school called Juilliard in New York, James began. I've heard of it. Maria interrupted. It's for rich kids. Famous kids, not kids like Elena. Actually, Juilliard is for talented kids, James corrected gently. And they have one of the best music educators in the world working there. Her name is Dr. Patricia Hammond. She's 73 years old, and she's trained some of the greatest musicians of our time. She saw Elena's video. She wants to hear her play in person. Elena's eyes went wide. Really? Really, James confirmed. Dr. Hammond never does this. She usually has a waiting list years long, but she said Elena's video moved her to tears. She said she needs to hear this child play before she retires. But we can't just fly to New York, Maria said. We can't afford that. And I have work. And Elena's brother needs his therapy appointments. We can't just drop everything. I know, James said. I've already bought you plane tickets for next Saturday. It's a day trip. You'll fly out in the morning and be back by evening. I'll cover everything. And I've spoken to your supervisor at the concert hall. She's giving you the day off. Maria sat back down, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this? James was quiet for a moment, because 25 years ago someone did it for me. A teacher I barely knew paid for my first real piano lesson. She paid for 3 years of lessons, actually, until I could get a scholarship. She never told me. I only found out years later after she had passed away. I never got to thank her. His eyes were shiny with held-back tears. I can't pay her back, but I can pay it forward. And when I saw Elena playing that piano, looking exactly like I used to look when I was her age, hungry for music, desperate to create, I knew this was my chance. Maria looked at her daughter. Elena's face was full of hope, the kind of hope that scared Maria because hope could be crushed so easily. Just one audition, James said, one morning. Let Dr. Hammond hear her play. Let's see what she says. You don't have to commit to anything. You don't have to sign anything. Just let Elena have this one chance. Maria closed her eyes. Every protective instinct in her body was screaming to say no. To keep Elena safe in their small world. To avoid the risk of disappointment, of exposure, of all the ways this could go wrong. But another part of her, the part that remembered her own lost dreams, the part that worked 2 jobs so her children could have better lives, that part was whispering something different. Mama, Elena said softly, I want to try. Even if nothing comes from it, I want to know. I want to see what Dr. Hammond thinks. Maria opened her eyes and looked at her daughter. When had Elena grown up so much? When had this scared little girl who used to hide behind her mother's legs become someone brave enough to dream? One audition, Maria said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Just one. And if I feel like anything is wrong, we leave immediately. Understood? James smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Understood. Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. Thank you for trusting me. You won't regret this. But as Maria lay in bed that night, listening to the sounds of the city outside her window, she couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were about to change in ways she couldn't control. She just hoped that change would be kind to them. That it wouldn't break the precious, fragile thing that was her daughter's innocent love of music. She got up and checked on Elena, who was sleeping peacefully, probably dreaming of pianos and melodies. Maria kissed her forehead and whispered a prayer into the darkness, asking for protection, for guidance, for the strength to make the right choices for her child. Saturday was coming. And with it, everything would change. The flight to New York was Elena's first time on an airplane. She pressed her face against the window, watching the clouds pass by like cotton balls floating in the sky. Maria sat beside her, gripping the armrests so tight her knuckles turned white. She had never flown before either, and the feeling of being suspended in the air made her stomach flip. James had kept his word. The tickets were first class, which Maria had protested until James explained they were upgrades from his own frequent flyer miles. He sat across the aisle, giving them space but staying close enough if they needed anything. When they landed, a car was waiting for them. Not a taxi, but a private car with a driver who held a sign with their names. Maria felt completely out of place, like she had accidentally walked into someone else's life. The Juilliard School was in Manhattan, a building that looked both modern and intimidating. Students walked through the halls carrying instrument cases, talking about composers and performances. Everyone looked confident, like they belonged there. Maria held Elena's hand tighter. Dr. Patricia Hammond's office was on the 4th floor. Her assistant, a young woman with kind eyes, led them to a waiting area with leather chairs and classical music, playing softly in the background. Dr. Hammond is just finishing with another student, the assistant said. She'll be with you shortly. Can I get you some water? Coffee? Maria shook her head. Her mouth was too dry to drink anything anyway. They waited for 20 minutes, though it felt like hours. Elena sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap. Maria wondered what her daughter was thinking, if she was nervous or excited or scared. Probably all three. Finally, the office door opened. An elderly woman stepped out, small and thin, with white hair pulled back in a bun. She wore a simple black dress and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. This was Dr. Hammond. She looked at Elena for a long moment, studying her with sharp, intelligent eyes. So you're the girl from the video? she said. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Come in, please. All of you." The office was filled with books and photographs. Pictures of Dr. Hammond with famous musicians covered one wall. A grand piano sat in the corner by a window overlooking the city. "Sit," Dr. Hammond said, gesturing to a couch. She took a chair across from them and turned her full attention to Elena. "Tell me, child, had you ever touched a piano before that night?" "No, ma'am," Elena said quietly. "And you can't read music?" "No, ma'am. Have you played since?" "Since the video?" Elena shook her head. "We don't have a piano." Dr. Hammond leaned back in her chair, considering this. "When you played that night, what were you thinking about?" Elena thought for a moment. "I wasn't really thinking. I was feeling. The music was just there inside me, and I let it come out through my fingers." "And where did the feeling come from?" Elena glanced at her mother. "From watching my mama work so hard. From being tired but not being able to complain because I know she's even more tired. From wanting our life to be different, but not knowing how to make it different. From loving my brother even though he's difficult sometimes. From all of it, I guess." Dr. Hammond's expression softened slightly. "You turned your life into music. That's what the greatest composers do. They take human experience and translate it into sound." She stood up and walked to the piano. "Come here. Play something for me, anything." Elena looked at her mother. Maria nodded, trying to smile even though her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Elena walked to the piano and sat on the bench. She placed her hands on the keys, and for a moment nothing happened. The room was completely silent. Then she began to play. It was different from the video. The melody was brighter this time, more hopeful. Maria could hear New York City in it. The excitement of the plane ride, the nervousness of this moment, but also something new. Possibility. Elena was playing about possibility. The music filled the office, spilling out into the hallway. James stood near the door, his eyes closed, listening. The assistant who had greeted them stopped her work to listen. Even students passing by in the hallway paused. Dr. Hammond stood perfectly still, her hand over her heart. Tears began streaming down her face, running over her wrinkled cheeks and dripping onto her black dress. She didn't wipe them away. When Elena finished, she turned around on the bench, uncertain. Dr. Hammond walked over slowly, as if she were approaching something sacred. She knelt down in front of Elena, this distinguished professor, this legend in the music world, getting on her knees in front of a 12-year-old girl. "Child," she whispered, "do you know what you have?" Elena shook her head. "You have what I've spent my entire career trying to teach people. I've worked with thousands of musicians. I've trained some of the finest pianists in the world. But what you just did, I cannot teach that. Nobody can teach that. It's a gift that comes from somewhere beyond training, beyond technique. It's music in its purest form." She looked up at Maria. "Mrs. Gonzalez, your daughter is what we call a natural genius. In my 50 years of teaching, I've met perhaps 3 or 4 students with this level of innate musicality, and none of them had it at such a young age, and certainly none without any training whatsoever." Maria felt dizzy. "What does that mean?" Dr. Hammond stood up, her joints creaking. "It means Elena needs to be nurtured. She needs training, yes, but careful training that doesn't destroy what makes her special. She needs teachers who understand that they're not creating talent, they're protecting it. She needs access to pianos, to music, to opportunities to grow." "But we can't afford any of that," Maria said, the words coming out broken. "I'm a cleaning lady. I work nights. We can barely pay rent. I can't give her what she needs." "I know," Dr. Hammond said. "That's why I'm going to help. And why James is going to help. And why dozens of other people will help once they understand what we have here." She sat back down, suddenly looking very tired. "I'm 73 years old. I've been thinking about retirement. But if I stop now, if I don't see this child develop her gift, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I want to take Elena as my student." The room went silent. "What does that mean?" Maria asked carefully. "It means I'll teach her myself, which I haven't done for a new student in 5 years. It means I'll work with James and the Juilliard administration to figure out a scholarship, a program that works for your family. It means we'll find a way to make this possible without destroying your life or Elena's childhood." Maria felt tears running down her own face now. "Why? Why would you do all this for us?" Dr. Hammond smiled, a real smile that made her whole face light up. "Because this is what I was put on this earth to do. To find talent and help it grow. And because your daughter has something the world needs to hear. Music like hers, music that comes from real life and real emotion, that's what reminds us we're human. That's what makes all the struggle worth it. She looked at Elena again. But I need to know something. Elena, do you want this? Not what your mother wants, not what I want. What do you want? Elena was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was clear and certain. I want to play. Not for fame or money. I just want to make music. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. When I play, I understand the world better. I understand myself better. Dr. Hammond nodded. That's the right answer. That's the only answer that matters. James stepped forward. Dr. Hammond, I have some ideas about how we can make this work. The Rothstein Concert Hall wants to be involved. They're proposing a program. Good, Dr. Hammond said. Let's talk logistics. But first, let this family have a moment. This is a lot to process. She left the room, taking James with her. The assistant followed, closing the door quietly behind them. Maria and Elena sat alone in the office, surrounded by photographs of great musicians, beside a piano that had just revealed her daughter's extraordinary gift. Mama, are you angry? Elena asked. Maria pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her tight. No, baby. I'm not angry. I'm terrified. I'm overwhelmed. But I'm not angry. What are we going to do? Maria looked out the window at New York City, stretching out below them. Millions of lives happening at once. Millions of dreams being chased or lost or found. I don't know, she admitted, but we're going to figure it out. Together, like we always do. And for the first time since this whole thing began, Maria felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Real, fragile, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, something good was about to happen to her family. That maybe all the hard work and sacrifice and struggle was leading somewhere after all. The next 3 weeks were the hardest of Maria's life. Not because things were bad, but because things were changing so fast she couldn't keep up. James and Dr. Hammond had been busy. They met with the board of directors at the Rothstein Concert Hall. They talked to immigration lawyers. They contacted musicians from around the world who wanted to help. And slowly, piece by piece, they built something Maria had never dared to imagine. The proposal came on a Tuesday evening. James, Dr. Hammond, and Mr. Rothstein himself, the billionaire who owned the concert hall, sat in Maria's tiny living room. They looked completely out of place among her worn furniture and peeling paint, but they didn't seem to notice or care. Mrs. Gonzalez, Mr. Rothstein began. He was an older man with white hair and kind eyes. I've spent 40 years in the music business. I've invested millions in young talent. But I've never seen anything like your daughter. Maria held her coffee cup tightly, saying nothing. We want to create a program for Elena, he continued. She'll study here in your city with rotating master teachers. Dr. Hammond has agreed to come once a month to work with her personally. James will coordinate her education. But more importantly, we want to help your whole family. How? Maria asked, her voice careful. We're creating a position at the concert hall, cultural program coordinator. It comes with a salary 3 times what you make now, health insurance for your whole family, and most importantly, a work visa that leads to permanent residency. Maria's cup shook in her hands. Why would you do that? Because talent like Elena's doesn't come around often, Mr. Rothstein said. And talent needs stability to grow. You can't nurture a gift if you're worried about rent and immigration status and working 2 jobs. We're not doing this out of charity. We're investing in something we believe in. Dr. Hammond leaned forward. And we've arranged for your son to continue his therapy program. Actually, we found a better program that specializes in his needs. It's covered. Maria felt tears burning in her eyes. This is too much. There must be something you want in return. Just one thing, James said. Let Elena be a kid. Let her study music because she loves it, not because she has to. No pressure. No demands. If she wants to stop tomorrow, she can stop. We're not buying her future. We're just opening doors. Maria looked at Elena, who sat quietly on the couch beside her younger brother. Her daughter's eyes were full of hope, but also something else. Trust. She trusted her mother to make the right decision. Can I think about it? Maria asked. Of course, Mr. Rothstein said. Take all the time you need. After they left, Maria sat in the dark apartment for a long time. Her mother, who had been listening from the bedroom, came out and sat beside her. You're scared, her mother said in Spanish. Of course I'm scared, Mama. What if this is all too good to be true? What if they change their minds? What if Elena can't handle the pressure? What if I'm making a terrible mistake? Her mother took her hand. Or what if you're giving your daughter a chance at a life you never had? What if this is the miracle we've been praying for? Maria cried then, really cried, all the fear and hope and exhaustion pouring out of her. 3 days later, she called James. "We'll do it," she said. But slowly. "And if anything feels wrong, if Elena is unhappy for even a moment, we stop. Understood?" "Understood," James said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. The months that followed were like a dream. Maria started her new job, learning about music programs and community outreach. Her son started his new therapy and began making progress they hadn't thought possible. And Elena began to study music properly, but the teachers were careful just like they had promised. They taught her to read music but encouraged her to keep composing her own pieces. They refined her technique but never tried to change the emotional core of her playing. They opened up the world of classical music to her while respecting what made her unique. Elena practiced 4 hours a day, but she also went to regular school. She had friends. She played soccer on weekends. She was still a kid. Just a kid who happened to be extraordinarily gifted. Then came the announcement. 6 months after that first audition, Mr. Rothstein made a proposal. Elena should give a concert. Nothing too big. Just one evening at the concert hall. Let people hear what we've all been hearing. Maria's first instinct was to say no, to protect Elena from that kind of exposure. But when she looked at her daughter, she saw excitement instead of fear. "I want to do it, Mama," Elena said. "I want to share my music," so they planned a concert. Word spread quickly. The girl from the viral video would perform live for the first time. Tickets sold out in 6 hours. News outlets wanted to cover it. Musicians from around the world bought plane tickets. The night of the concert, Maria stood backstage watching the audience fill the grand hall. She saw Maestro Viktor Petrov, the famous conductor who had tweeted about Elena sitting in the 3rd row. She saw celebrities and music professors and regular people who had driven hours just to be there. But mostly she saw Mrs. Chen, her neighbor, sitting with tears already in her eyes. She saw Roberto, the security guard who had uploaded the video dressed in his best suit. She saw her son in his wheelchair, wearing headphones to protect his sensitive hearing, bouncing with excitement. Elena stood beside her in a simple white dress they had bought together. She wasn't nervous. She looked peaceful. "Mama, what should I play?" Elena had asked during rehearsal. "What do you want to play?" Maria had replied. "I want to play about us. About where we came from and where we're going. About cleaning floors at midnight and flying on airplanes. About being scared and being brave. About all of it." And that's what she did. When Elena walked onto that stage, the same stage where she had played months ago in the middle of the night thinking no one would ever know, the applause was thunderous, but it faded to complete silence when she sat at the piano. She played for 45 minutes straight, her own compositions mixed with classical pieces she had learned. But even the classical pieces sounded different when Elena played them. She poured her life into every note. Maria sat in the front row watching her daughter transform into something more than human. In those moments, Elena wasn't just a girl playing piano. She was music itself, pure and true and honest. People in the audience cried openly. Some closed their eyes and swayed. Others sat frozen, afraid to move and break the spell. When Elena played her final piece, an original composition she called Midnight Piano, there wasn't a dry eye in the building. The melody carried all the loneliness of those nights at the concert hall, but also all the hope of what came after. The silence after she finished lasted for what felt like an eternity. Then the applause started and it didn't stop. People stood shouting and clapping. The ovation went on for 15 minutes.